The situation was dire.
Status update. I'm cold, I'm wet, I'm pretty sure I have trench foot. That's about it.
It was the morning of the second day, and after sleeping off last night's pizza, packing our bags, and shoving some breakfast down the pipe, at 8:30 sharp, we fired up our bikes and rolled out. The weather report had predicted some rain, so most of us started off with rain gear on us already. Our guide, Johan, was the dissenting voice, proclaiming that he'd only needed rain gear twice in all of his years of riding. At one time, it was a mistake. Nevertheless, I didn't want to get wet and then seal in that wetness with rain gear on top. Today's journey would take us from the hostel at Kongsberg into the mountains, and some 400 kilometers later would lead us to a campsite deep in the Fjordlands. At first, the road was fairly unremarkable, leaving Kongsberg and winding our way through a forested valley. Even so, we were all excited for our first real day of Norway adventuring. Soon enough, we passed the town of Fjordlands and then caught a glimpse of Fjord's stave church.
Oh wow, it's a stave church.
The church dates back to the early 13th century. It's an example of the kind of church built just as the Viking Age was ending and Scandinavia was becoming Christian. We passed through endless farmland, surrounded by ever-growing hills and a slowly darkening sky. Ducking back into the forest, we were beginning to speed up, and with a little help from our guides, we fell into a comfortable formation with good distance to bikes both in front and in back. The nature around us seemed to be getting more wild by the moment. Then came our first switchback. The road narrowed, tightened up, and doubled back on itself, with what seemed like very narrow margins. I had to counterlean quite far and pull the throttle to power up the steep little incline, and then moments later do it again. God damn. This is awesome. I'm lucky we're on bikes. I would not want to do this in a car. We kept climbing until we passed the tree line, and finally we were in the mountains for real. We pulled up for a photo op. After a short break, we set off again, and now the first few raindrops were starting to hit us. We crested a hill and then cruised through the barren landscape. Finally, we began our long descent down the back of the mountain, and the switchbacks returned. The way down had a steep gradient, and we were told to shift down and engine brake. The downhill was so long that using the regular brakes would overheat them and eventually lead to brake failure. It seems this road was used in some kind of hill climbing competition. The asphalt was full of encouraging messages left behind for the participants. Big nets were stretched across the cliff face to prevent falling rocks. I could swear I heard something from up there.
Oh shit, did you hear that? I'm not kidding. I think I actually heard a falling rock.
Once we were back in the valley, we stopped for fuel and a bathroom break, and we discussed where to go from here. We had planned to visit a museum dedicated to a heavy water factory, but considering the turning weather and our schedule, we decided to skip it. We did, however, take the time to point it out when we passed it.
I'm not even sure what a heavy water museum is, but those pipes coming off the mountain are pretty cool.
But now, finally, the weather was truly beginning to turn. The rain, which had started as just a few drops, was now settling in proper, and I was discovering a problem.
Uh-oh. My feet are getting a little, damp. These boots are supposed to be waterproof. They used to be waterproof.
What I had failed to notice was a tear between the sole and the main body of the boot. Every moment I spent in the backwash of the bike ahead of me, and with rain coming down around me, I was getting wetter. The temperature was dropping too.
Last week I was riding around complaining to myself about how hot it is. I will never complain that it's too hot again. Ever. Why am I doing this to myself?
By the time we arrived at our lunch stop, I was soaked and just goddamn miserable. We'd spend an hour in this town, refueling and getting food. The only restaurant in town was closed, so we all piled into the gas station. I had a hamburger, which in Norway comes with corn for some reason. By the time we were ready to leave, I was a little warmer and in slightly better spirits, but things looked grim. The rain was only getting worse, and we had a long way left to go. The hours passed slow and hard, and the landscape blurred into what felt like an endless stretch of wet pine and sloshing boots. We gained altitude again, and had our first encounter with Norway's many mountain sheep. The farmers let them roam the mountainsides freely, and they're often on or right next to the road. They're pretty good at avoiding vehicles, but they like to sleep on the asphalt because it's warmer, so they really are everywhere when you're driving up here. We made another stop by a rocky dam and got to look at them up close. Near the end of the road now. By the time we reached the campsite, the rain had just about ended. I could hardly tell, though. I couldn't get any wetter anyway. Johan and Matthias announced that we toss our bags into our cabins for the night and then go for a ride to Lysebotn. I felt like throwing in the towel until they said that had the weather been better, they would have straight up forced us to join in because of what an amazing road this was. That convinced me. With renewed spirit and unloaded, more agile bikes, we set off into the mountains once again. What a road! Look at it! The road was draped in cloud and fog. But every once in a while, it would part, revealing what an incredible place we had arrived at. Wow! Now this is more like it. Oh my god, this is brilliant! Once we got to the peak, we were met with an eerie sight.
Look at the rock piles. There's rock piles everywhere. Jesus, as far as the eye can see.
I sensed there were some incredible views before us, and that we were at a dizzying altitude, but it was all draped in fog. It felt eerie, like we were on the precipice of a great void. We began working our way back down along a serpentine, occasionally glimpsing rock walls and mountains nearby, just enough to demonstrate to us that we were a narrow lane away from a long drop and certain doom. At one point, the road must have been too difficult to engineer along the cliff face, for they had simply dug through the mountain and created a tunnel. The tunnel was bare bones. It barely felt roadworthy, more like a cave that just happened to be in the right place. Finally, we made it down to the base of Lysebotn. This incredible fjord, wrapped in cloud and just barely hinting at its majesty, was grand enough still to make us gape in awe. It had been a difficult journey, and this had made it all worth it.